powerful. That's another reason to, I think, to work in the open source space. And we have many innovative projects in Apache, like Duke, CouchDB, Apache. Cocoon is not too active today, but it was a very active technology, innovative technology at the time. And funnily, many of us are in this conference because of Cocoon, because the community was a very powerful one, very friends-based, and Ross Gardler was in this, and many others who are here today. So it was very innovative in terms of community, in addition to being innovative in terms of software. Just to tell you a bit more about Apache, we have about 2,000 committers, so people who write in the coding projects, 300 members who steer the foundation, about 100 projects in total, an incubator which is active to bring new projects in, community development group, of which Noreen and Ross and Nick Birch, who's also here, are active in. And we have big sponsors like Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, so it's a serious thing. And still it's, we manage. It's, we managed to make it run, and it's quite fun. So I hope I've demonstrated that you get this fast feedback in software with the open source way of working. As a concrete example, this is my company's main product, CQ5, this content management system. The company is about 150 people, just to give you a bit of the context. We have big customers like McDonald's, Daimler, a few automobile makers. We survived the crazy times of 2000 and after 2000, with share price going from 700 francs down to 3. It's back to 90 today, so it's not too bad. And we have these guys like Roy Fielding, who is the inventor of REST, and David Nuschler, spec lead of JCR. So it's a serious commercial company. It's not just your corner, web design company. This is the architecture of our system. I don't want to go into detail about that, but I just want to dim the open source part to show you that it's pretty much all open source. We have, as I said, just a few closed components that we include in our product. And we have strong ties with open source. We're quite active in the Apache Foundation. We have about 15, 20 Apache committers and members in our group. One of the board members, I was also on the board 2 years ago, and so we're quite active, quite implicated in the foundation, even though we're a commercial company. I'm going to show quickly in the 5 minutes that remain a tool that was created by Stefano Mazzocchi and another of these geniuses that lay around the foundation, which shows you the relationships between people. This is the red squares are people, and this is the Jackrabbit mailing list, the mailing list of one of our projects that we use. And this tool shows you, you can start it, and it will show you the attractions, so the level of communications between these people. It's very interesting because you see that the people in the center are more influential, or more chatty, or more noisy. you have to go further to investigate. And the question that I was asking was, my company is very active in the project. Are we dominating it? So we see a bit of the shape that forms when you start the things. We still don't see the people's names. I think we see that on the next one. I'm highlighting the people who have a day.com address, which is my company's domain. And you see that many of them are in the center, but still there's lots of other people. And this is typically, if you ask around Apache, many people will tell you, yeah, Jackrabbit, that's a project that's dominated by day people. And if you look at it, it's not really the case. Many of them are close to the center, and still there's a lot of other important people who are very connected in this project and do not use their day.com address. Okay, people could also be posting with the Apache.org address, so you have to be a bit finer. But you can look at it, and that's very interesting way of analyzing these things. Then I did some ego surfing, and I highlighted my username to see how I'm doing in that project. I tend to be on the chatty side sometimes, so maybe it's not the best example. But just to see that I do not write code in this project. I do participate in some of the discussions because I'm using it higher levels in our products, but I'm not writing code. And you'll see that when I start the automatic attraction, I'm somewhere relatively close to the center, but not really at the center. And it's really, I think it matches my role in a project where I'm interested seriously in it, but without being one of the core folks. So this is a very interesting tool to analyze these relationships in the project and the kind of feedback also that you get from outsiders, even in a project that's supposed to be dominated by our company in this case. So I think, hope to have convinced you, but the discussion will be open in 30 seconds, about that open innovation. Open source really fosters innovation in your software feedback, software process, because feedback is key. Because getting this fast feedback will help you steer your product, and if done right, I was taking Apache as an example. There are some open source projects, so-called open source, which do not really work along these principles. But the way Apache does it helps you get lots of feedback fast from lots of different people. That's really valuable. So this will hopefully help you find those needles in the haystack of ideas. As I said, I have this article on DH Online, which goes in a bit more detail about this. You can read it later if you want. And I'm open for questions now, or comments. Either was too clear, or it's after lunch. So.
I've got an easy one. What's Sling?
Sling is, so you know about JCR? The Java Content Repository? Okay, so our product is based on, our product does content management, large-scale website management. The content is stored in a so-called content repository, and the API to that is a JCP standard, JSR 170 and 283, which is called JCR, Java Content Repository. This stores content in a tree. Basically, it's a big tree with noted properties and lots of useful functions for content management, like observation, locking, versioning, that kind of stuff. Sling is an applications layer on top of that. So it's kind of a web framework, RESTful, promotes the REST way of doing things, and it's based on OSGI, which is a Java module system, but it's also very modular. And this is used as an applications layer for our project. That's a project where I'm most active at the moment. It's not a big project. But Sakai, there's a talk by Ian Boston later today about Sakai, which is a UK, I think it started in the UK probably, content management system for educational institutions. And they're also using Sling. We convinced them last year to use it, and they're very happy about it. So that's, I think his talk will be interesting, even though he's competing with a guy from Wikimedia. Let's go, help Ian have some more.
How do you align the roadmap of your product at Day Software with the different projects?
The project roadmap, yeah. The key is finding the right interface between the open source project and your thing. And for example, JCR, we also spec lead for JCR, so we started the JCR idea to say, let's define an abstract interface to a content store that fulfills our needs, but will also be useful to other people. And because this is a spec, we have to do it by spec. So if we need some special features for our product, either we try to bring them into the spec. If it's a good idea, usually it makes it. If not, we add some more modularity to the project so that we can plug in our special components. And this also gives a benefit to other users of the projects. And I think HTTPD is the best example. The HTTPD core is very small, as far as I know, and it's all modules, which means everybody who uses HTTPD can customize it to their own needs to a very large extent. And this makes the project itself very useful and sustainable. And I think if you look at the successful Apache projects, they all have found this right balance between, I think, first I would say infrastructure projects are what works best at Apache. Basic components that people can reuse. And then you structure that in a way that is easily extendable, so you can plug in your own custom things, which are maybe harder to agree on, or you just need this because you're in a special business. And speaking of Sakai, Sakai coming to Sling has helped us make Sling better, more modular, because they needed some things that we didn't have. Say, okay, how can we, either you fork it and you do your own variant of it, which is bad for both, because then we don't collaborate as much, So we re-engineered some parts of Sling to make them able to plug in their own modules. And I think that's the key to having a roadmap in a project that is useful for everybody. Yes?
So it's after lunch, I might have drifted off, and I apologize if I did. But you talked a lot about tools helping the process of feedback and passing events through project teams and so on, people being able to respond and so on. But what about the actual process of generating ideas? What happens before those stages of going to code in distributed teams that are working in open source mold?
Yeah. I think the successful projects usually started with a small team. You get 3 geeks in a room, pizza and beer, and you leave them for 2 weeks, and you come back. And if you selected the good ones, you get a good nucleus for a new project. It's very hard to start a project from scratch in a completely open fashion, because it's very hard to agree. But I have another story from Sling. When I joined Day 3 years ago, they were starting to, because Sling was created at Day initially, they were starting to move it to Apache, and I looked at it and I didn't understand how it worked. It was complicated. The lingo was weird, because it had come from an internal project, where you develop your own world. And coming from the outside, I didn't understand it. What I did, I asked my supervisor, can I take 2 weeks to rewrite a mini Sling that I understand, and then I'll check with these guys if I understand it, if I understood the ideas right. It was more efficient than talking. Trying to understand would have taken 3 months. So I said, okay, I'll go to my own corner, I'll do a mini Sling and trying to get the good ideas of it. And funnily, they said, yeah, this matches what we did, pretty much, but it's simpler. So we completely rewrote Sling based on this idea. So I don't know if you're aware of the rules for revolutionaries. That's a manifesto that was created 10, 15 years ago maybe, that said if you disagree in an open source project, you can either fork it, so do another variant of it, or you can try to create a new version of it that you find is better and demonstrate to your folks that it's better. So that's one way you can solve this problem of generating ideas and agreeing on them. But I would say most of the successful open source projects have started with a very small team and then expanded to a larger team. That's usually how it works.
Yeah, because all my experience says all start with a small team. Only expand what's the nucleus.
Exactly. So, but the small team, in the case of my story with Sling, the small team was within a project. The project was already starting, and I said, okay, I'm going to be a small team, and I'm not saying what I did is better, because I came from outsider's eyes, I was able to make it simpler, because the guys have been doing that for 10 years, and they had, created their own world. So I think, either starting with a small team or branching off for a bit with a small team.
One of the rules for revolutionaries is about naming. So in this, it's really important not to name it a new version. Because then you say it's better. It's just different. So
right.
The thing that I turn in revolution is also pick a name, a new name. Go off and look on.
And this can be for the whole product or just for one module. You have one module that looks weird. Instead of complaining, you do your own version of that, which might be very prototype, rough, but exposes your idea. And after 10 years in the Apache Software Foundation, I would say the best ideas are expressed in code. Talking, especially on mailing lists, often leads to nothing. And once you come back with a code, it can be 20 lines of code that shows your idea. That's usually how you can convince people. Okay? Thank you.
You know,